This is Tony Jeffries and you're watching Sporting Icons.
Okay, so let's take a little bit of a break from the whole Joshua Fury Wilder situation and talk about some other boxing news. In fact, recently I've done the video on Demetrius Andrade where he says that the middleweights such as himself, Jamal Charlo, Triple G, Rata Murata, for whatever reason, they can't seem to get unifications together. And of course he pointed to other weight divisions where they are doing unifications, and especially with Undisputed. So while Demetrius Andrade, well, he can't get any of the current 3 champions, well, let's see him fight somebody who may cause him a lot of problems, such as a Chris Eubank Jr. And Eddie Hearn, he spoke to Kalle Sauerland. Kalle Sauerland is, of course, Chris Eubank Jr.'s new promoter. Chris Eubank Jr., he won against Marcus Morrison last time out. Obviously, he's got Roy Jones Jr. in his corner. Although I know Chris Eubank Jr., he got like a little bit of stick for his performance over Marcus Morrison. But I think it's pretty evident that Chris Eubank Jr. was actually trying to get the rounds in after a long time of inactivity. The fact he's got Roy Jones Jr. in his corner now, so he wants to get used to going back to the corner and seeing Roy Jones. For me, it was pretty obvious with that fight. Okay, but either way, I think that Chris Eubank Jr. and Demetrius Andrade for the WBO middleweight world title would be an interesting fight. And apparently, Kalle Sauerland and Chris Eubank Jr. are very interested, according to Eddie Hearn. Now, he said this on IFL TV on the recent interview. Now, I would like to see this fight. I really would. Now, of course, ideally, yes, we want to see Andrade take on Charlo, Triple G, or even Murata. Okay, but can't get those done. When you look around the middleweight division, who is there really for Demetrius Andrade to fight? Well, I think Chris Eubank Jr. is a very, very credible opponent. Arguably, he will be Demetrius Andrade's toughest opponent yet. Some disagree. Some people just don't like Chris Eubank Jr., and that's fine. You know, everybody's entitled to like whoever it is that they want to like. I think stylistically, it could be a very interesting fight. Demetrius Andrade, he can be aggressive at times, but does spend a lot of his time on the back foot. Chris Eubank Jr. is not really a back foot fighter. He's the one who comes forward. So it would be pretty much a cat and mouse fight, that's for sure. But when these guys start connecting with each other, it's going to be very, very interesting. Chris Eubank Jr., lightning fast hands. And I don't think that he's going to be looking at Demetrius Andrade as he did with Marcus Morrison, where if he gets him in trouble, he's just going to let him off the hook, step back, just try and get a few more rounds in, even if that's going to be his very next fight. If he hurts and stuns Demetrius Andrade, he'll jump all over him. Now, Chris Eubank Jr., he does have 2 losses on his resume. Billy Joe Saunders, very, very close fight. And of course, with George Groves, where Chris Eubank Jr. had to go to the well, where of course he was busted open in that fight. So he's a very tough guy. He's a very durable guy. And I don't know if I'm in the minority or not, but I quite like Chris Eubank Jr. I do. But some people don't. Some people see him like Marmite, love him or hate him. But I think that as far as this particular fight is concerned, this is one that I would definitely watch. I wouldn't say it's pay-per-view. Not at all. But, hey, by the time this fight, if it does happen, rolls around, you would imagine Eddie Hearn will be fully over with DAZN, and we'll get it as part of the DAZN UK app. So that'd be interesting for sure. But either way, I would like to see this fight. I think if Demetrius Andrade can't get the other champions, why not a Chris Eubank Jr.? Could they bring Demetrius Andrade over to the UK? I don't know. I think Demetrius Andrade, he said that he'd like to fight in the UK at some point, but I don't know whether it's a big ambition of his. I have no idea. Would Chris Eubank Jr., would he be okay about going to America and fighting? And he has done before, of course, so I imagine that he would. Kalle Sauerland, he's going to want Chris Eubank Jr. in a fight with Demetrius Andrade. And if a good offer has come through and Chris Eubank turns it down, we're going to have a different conversation. Because Chris Eubank Jr., he can't say everybody who's a champion in the middleweight division is on notice, as he's recently said, get an opportunity and then not go for it. So if a good offer's come through, let's not make any excuses about it. Let's get this fight over the line. Of course, as much as I am a fan of Demetrius Andrade, Chris Eubank Jr., he's a fellow Brit, so of course I want to want him to win. Would he win? I mean, we'll look at that a little bit closely. I mean, I don't want to go too much into that fight, because it's just a complete waste of a time, really, isn't it? Until the fight's actually officially signed and announced. But either way, right now, me personally, I can speak for myself. I'll be very interested in watching this fight. Drop your thoughts below. Click thumbs up, subscribe. Catch you on the next video.